Let's call this meeting to order. Please rise for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Can we do a roll call, please?
Winterton?
Here.
Heibel?
Here.
Steffes?
Here.
Gardine?
Present.
Palmer here. DeHaan?
Here.
Klein?
I have arrived.
Great. They're all here.
We're all here, great. Please note as a courtesy to members of the audience and the Board of Education to silence your cell phone. Public will be able to speak during public comment is signed up. Do we have any forms? All right, we don't. First item on our agenda is the approval of agenda. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Support.
All in favor?
Yes.
Great. Next, we have future action items. I'm going to turn it right over for our discussion on the budget.
Yes, as you know, we have our budget hearing. It's an annual thing that takes place, and Heather's here to present the proposed budget for 2023-24.
Good evening. So tonight, just to kind of outline a little bit of the agenda, we're going to talk about the levies, and I know we talked about them at the last meeting as well. There were no changes from the last meeting, but I do want to go over it with you again. And then we'll hit every one of our funds listed there tonight. So the mills to be levied again on the general fund, non-homestead. With the millage passing, we are able to levy the full 18 mills. Debt service fund, I worked with PFM to make sure that we are not carrying or levying too much in terms of how much the property taxes values have increased in the area, and they did recommend to keep it at 5.05 mils for this coming year. And then our sinking fund, we will levy 1.3521 mils. The sinking fund did not receive a Headley rollback this year, which is good news. So it's the same amount that was levied as this last school year. Again, I know we've talked a lot about this recently, but I think it's just good to keep it at the forefront. What is a Headley rollback? That is when our taxable values on our current properties are increasing at a rate higher than CPI is increasing. And we're starting to see that level out a little bit, which is the reason for no rollback on the sinking fund. So originally the sinking fund was approved at 1.4 mils, and the most recent rollback was in the 21-22 school year when it was reduced from 1.3079 to 1.3521. The approximate total of uncollected tax dollars from the 18-19 year, which is the first year we received a Headley rollback in the sinking fund, is $295,600. Again, you can kind of see, I just outlined the uncaptured revenue for both funds going back, and then great news is 23-24 general fund will collect the full amount. And again,
Could you just push that back one?
Sure. Yep.
Okay, go ahead. You underlined something to me. It was a negative, so I had to get it in my head. You're fine.
Okay. Debt service fund history. It's either been at 3.2 or 5.05, and the jump was due to the increase, the passing of the 2019 bond vote that we had. In Kent County, we rank number 4 when you look at the debt mill levied, behind Grand Rapids, Kentwood, and Kennewa Hills. And when compared to Ottawa, we're number 3 behind Grand Haven and Holland.
Can you go back again? Sorry.
Nope, no worries.
Go ahead. I want to see Jennison.
Oh, okay. Sorry. No, I'm just clicking too fast. Sorry.
No, you're doing fine.
All right. So our assumptions for the debt service fund, again, the levy to remain at 5.05 mils, and then increase in property tax values of approximately 7%. We're looking at revenues of just over $11,050,000 with expenditures of $10 million $200,000 to give us a surplus of $844,000 with an ending fund balance of $2.2 million. Our expenditures, so remember this fund, this is like your mortgage payment. So really the expenditures amount to payments of principal and interest on those bonds. The revenues are mainly from the tax levy, and we do get a little bit of personal and property tax reimbursement from the state for an adjustment in when property values go down on certain types of properties. So.
And you probably had it. I'm trying to be quick with all my questions so I don't throw you behind.
Nope, you're fine.
So for the 303, right, are what we had in debt prior to the last, when does that expire? When does that pay off?
The next fund, or the next bonds, I think, that are paying off, I'll have to get you a chart, but I'm pretty sure the earliest is like 2030, maybe, 2033.
Okay. So we've got a long way to go.
Yeah, I think they go out to 2037.
Okay.
But again, too, and I'll get to it in a little bit, we'll be issuing another series in May of '24, and I'm not sure exactly. That could be a little bit longer. We're going to look at opportunities, though, just like we did before with the 2013 to refund where we can. The 2015 bonds are something that we'll be looking at next, along with when we issue the 2024, seeing how we can save money on interest up front. Capital project sinking fund, again, revenue consists of the levy. Same thing, property tax values increase of 7%. The sinking fund expires the same time as the newest operating general fund millage, December of 2026. This year's projects include, and all of them you've already approved, the Cummings and high school roof improvements, high school boilers, and then there's a little bit in there for some miscellaneous building improvements at the, kind of just doing some finish up work at the GEC. So, and then we always set aside about $250,000 for emergency purposes. Looking at revenues of just under 2.9 million with expenditures of 4.1. We'll have a deficit in that in next year of 1.2, leaving us with an ending fund balance of 934,000. Capital projects fund. So this is the May 13 vote that was passed. We are spending down the the last little bit from the third and final series. I think you actually approved the purchase of Chromebooks at the last meeting, and that is what those final dollars will go towards. So. And then capital projects fund from the vote that was passed in November of 2019. You can see we're looking at revenues of just under 11 million, and that is due to the final issuance of that third series in May of 2024. Expenditures of just under 17 million for a deficit of 5.8 million and an ending fund balance of 17.3 million. 7-8 building is, bills are still rolling in, and 5-6 is just getting started with those invoices that are coming in for those projects. Working on the design of the new maintenance facility, and should have something to you in the future there to look at. Food service fund. Before I talk about next year, I do want to talk just a little bit about the current year with this fund. You'll remember that 21, 22, and part of 2021, meals were free for all students, no matter what your income level was. And what that did is it was great because it allowed us to be able to provide for everyone. But there's also a rule and it's a federal rule, it's not a state rule, that you can only carry so much in your fund balance. And so pretty much every district in the state of Michigan had to create, or had an excess fund balance. And so to meet that requirement, one of the things the state requires is that we submit a spending plan to them. There are very few things that you can spend that money on, and it all has to be related to food service. To give you an example, if I were to say, oh, I'm going to buy new food service tables for the entire district, I could only charge a percentage of that because other groups will come in and use the tables at different points in time. So we worked with Jeff to put that spending plan together, so when you see the final in the regular meeting, you're going to see a deficit of 1.1 million. That is what we need to do to get to right our fund balance, and we were very strategic in making sure that we were able to cover the ongoing costs. So a lot of it is equipment, looking at replacing some fixtures and stuff, and probably in this next year, depending on if we are spot on with how we think we're going to end up, we're probably going to look at upgrading some of the freezers and such at the high school.
So historically, we have had a significant fund balance for food service.
Usually around 300,000 to 400,000.
To me, that's significant for a program in most districts that barely breaks even, right? So pulling all that back down to that is nice. Well done.
Thanks.
'Cause you saved it.
What's that?
Somehow, you saved it.
Well, here's the thing too, right? It is, the 20th? And we still have no state aid budget. Now, one of the big things that we think is going to happen will be free meals for all, again, for all districts. If that goes through, we're gonna have a hard time. I mean, because they were reimbursing us at over $5 a meal. They were reimbursing us at the summer reimbursement rate. So, it's a good problem to have because it will help us maintain our equipment and upgrade some of those things, like the freezers in the high school haven't been upgraded since that building was purchased or built. It's a good problem to have, but we'll see what they do, if they make any adjustments to that, because other states, I guess, have done that before as well, so we'll see. Student activity fund, this is just that in and out. It's really an accounting rule that we have to follow to put it in this format. And so it's just a lot of our fundraisers and student groups at the various buildings, PTCs, et cetera. Basically, it's in and out. Money comes in, money goes out for those specific pieces. So revenues were projecting 1.2 million and expenditures of 1.1 million for $100,000 surplus. And this fund balance usually floats around this amount too. So somewhere between 500,000 to 800,000 is what that fund will float between. And this past year, fundraising was through the roof at like multiple different places. I know Senior Survivor was a big one, but also Cummings had a large one, and I think East had a good walkathon too. So
South does that.
South had,
like in
yeah.
a day, $20-some thousand. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, so
It's crazy.
it's just the community support is just really awesome to see.
Is that fund balance there counted in our overall fund balance?
This is a totally separate
Okay.
fund. This
Okay.
fund is used specifically for whatever the fundraiser was for.
Okay.
So,
Thank you.
yeah. I can't slide money from this into the general fund.
That's a no-no, Barb.
Unless that's what the donation specified, then I can. So,
Then you can.
jumping into the general fund, State Aid Act, they're still working on the budget. We were told maybe today, but now maybe Thursday, so we'll see. I estimated our foundation allowance increase to be 500, which is a little bit over what the governor had. I think she had 468 in her proposal. And so that would be an increase from 9150 to 2220, or in 2223 to 9650. The reason I went higher than what she had has to do with, there's a lot of potential new money in at-risk and special ed, and it's kind of convoluted in how they're calculating it. So I went with, I'm just gonna put more here for now since we don't have the answer. That's what I did. Taxable values increase of 7%, or 7% again, with being able to levy the full 18 mills. It does include a portion of the state stabilization funds that are left, so that's approximately 2.3 million. ESSER 3 should be pretty much fully spent at the close of June 30 this year of 23. And these funds, the way, if you remember, kind of the way we were pulling them down was when they released the funds, we rolled forward the expenses and tried to stick with those same purposes, you know, mental health, safety, security. So these state stabilization funds that we'll be able to draw will cover that expended revenue from 23 in ESSER. So, and then it also includes the elimination of one-time revenues, which is approximately $3.1 million. When I show you the fund balance, I also have an adjusted fund balance because I want to show there's a lot of one-time money right now. 3 million of that 3.1 is an additional MIPSers pay down where they gave us the money and then we turned around and paid it right back to them. So that's in addition to the 6 million that they had budgeted for this current school year. So when you look at that, it really inflates not only your revenues, but your expenditures because it's just an in and out. And so when we look at the bottom line on that of our fund balance as a percentage of expenditures, I wanted to show you what that true fund balance percentage looked like. Expense assumptions include salary and benefit increases in accordance with all of the agreements that we have. We are in year 2 of our 3-year deal. Steps average about 2.2%, and that's in addition to the 3.25% on the base. Staffing levels are going to remain constant with the addition of safety director, and the MIPSers retirement contribution is going up to 34.31% from 28.23%. A large increase. There are other lines in the budget that will help offset that increase, but they are not necessarily dollar for dollar offsets.
34%.
Yeah.
So where do you have any projections, or do we get any projections as to where it's going to be in the next 3-4 years?
They release this number every year in January with the governor's budget. So,
Wow.
yeah, it
I
was.
thought I'd get this high.
Remember when we went to, gosh, was it like 12 or 13? They rolled it back to 20.96, right? And now it's ballooned back up there.
When I first started on the board, it was just over 9%.
Yeah.
We never thought it would get over 24.
Yeah, it's.
Wow.
And that's just the retirement rate that the district pays on the salaries that we pay. That doesn't include like the unfunded liability piece. So, employer insurance cap increase, that is as part of PA 150, Public Act 152, which set limits for family, 2-person and single subscriber rates. Are capped at, that cap will go up 4.1%. In 21-22, it had gone up 1.3%. And that's based on medical CPI. So we do have a good idea of what that number is going to be each year. And then with the 2013 bond being fully expended, we put in, and actually you guys already approved a purchase of 2 buses. I think it was last fall already, but that's actually coming out of this 23-24 budget. So just have to get those orders in super early so that they're here. So 22-23, we're looking at a small surplus of 221,000. I think at the previous amendment, I had around 300,000, so not a whole lot of change there. Just trying to tighten up some of the lines. And so when you look at the fund balance as a percentage of expenditures, you have 10.08%, just straight 8.274 divided by the 82,086. When I back out $9 million, though, you can see it adjusts up to 11.3. And so in 23-24, it's projecting a deficit of $518,000, fund balance of 7.7, and again, in 23-24, I can't back out $9 million because I don't know that one-time $3 million is going to carry forward at this point. So I only backed out $6 million, which puts us at 10.8%. And then this is just a history where we've been, where we are.
So one-time funds are going to start hurting our fund balance significantly over the next couple of years unless there's a massive influx of cash.
A massive influx of
Well, let's put it
cash,
this way. We're
or
adding staff, we're adding programs, and fund balance is starting to do the bell curve. And that's
Yeah,
just
I mean,
reality to me.
yeah, and two, I mean, it's a conservative budget.
Hey, bless your heart, I understand that.
No, I know, and I think that's one of the things that we talk about too in our committee from the adding programs and people. I don't know that have we over the last few years? Yes. Going forward, do I see it at that type of rate of increase? No. In terms of hiring more staff.
And I
It would be
understand
great
that.
if we could get more kids too.
But is it, well, we already know.
I know,
you gotta have
it's
magic
not-
wand for that. But is it sustainable? What we're doing right now, is it sustainable unless there's some categorical funding that decides to come to us from the state? And they see how other schools have funded. I mean, we're not alone.
Mhm.
And do they support it or do they ignore it? I'm not asking you to answer it. I'm telling you
Yeah.
that's what I think it is.
Yeah, and those are things that we have to weigh and reflect all the time and see where things going. You know, the budget, you know, when you look at the increase that we're looking at, I mean, it's higher than it's been. I mean, the funding is good. At-risk and special ed, they're looking at funding those in ways they haven't before, and that's good. But, you know, I think that you're not gonna have the one-time money, so you have to be cautious with that. But at the same time, you're getting more revenue overall per pupil than you ever have.
And MIPSR's is higher than it's
And
ever been.
MIPSR's is higher than, yeah, so you had to weigh all that stuff. So, you know, I think, you know, like Heather said, and you guys already know this, we always are conservative in how we budget and so on. But at the same time, we've got to pay attention to all that stuff over time as we move forward. We're never going to recommend things or do things that we know, gosh, you know, this is, you know, we're nervous about or worried about. But over time, as staffing, you know, people retire and so on, you're always looking at your bottom line to see, you know, where are you know, where's the revenue, and does the expenditures fall in line with that or not? Because if not, then you got to adjust during those times when you can.
So, tell me if I got this right. In 2019-2020, that school year, were we around 63 million in revenue?
Yeah, approximately.
Yep. Okay, so we've grown 20 million in 5 years.
So
20 million, and how do you sustain that?
Well, but when you look at it, some of that growth is that UAL. I mean, this
Right.
year alone, it was $9 million. That's why I wanted to make sure to show that adjusted amount, because that when I started, your total revenues or total expenditures was 56 million. I mean, I started in 2010, but those are the things that have climbed as well. Not to say, I mean, yeah, inflation's part of it too, and wages have gone up, benefits have gone up. But,
Yeah.
I mean, at least 50% of that 20 million is that money that just comes in and goes right back out.
Okay. Nice job, Evan.
Heather, I just got one quick question. Emergency purchases for like maintenance stuff or whatever, how do those go through? Like, are those approved by Roger or?
So typically, it would be an insurance claim. And so when we have those, our deductible is $5,000 on a property and casualty type claim. And then because of it being an insurance claim, they have a hand in making sure that we're getting a fair price, so we don't have to go through that bid process.
Okay.
And so usually we'll put it out. Right now, we're really lucky because we have a lot of contractors on site, so we can reach out and get a few prices and then send it to the insurance company for approval.
Okay.
But that's typically how that works. But we have to like front that before we get,
Yeah.
reimbursed. So.
Thank you.
But let's say it wasn't an insurance claim, we would be bringing it back to you most likely through, depending on timing of what we needed, through, there's a board policy on emergency purchases. So we
Like
would notify you.
You typically see that with fuel, like I'll put it in our board update to notify you.
I remember that. Yeah, that one. Okay. Cool, thank you.
So Heather, I just wondered, are you worried about this deficit?
Am I worried about
And, like,
it?
is that something that, you feel like it can be made up, or it just our fund balance will manage that? I didn't know if it's something that, what would it take to be
I
a
think-
no deficit?
So I think my struggle with this budget is I know the expenditures. I don't know what the revenue is, right? So like I said, I guess I looked at it from the perspective of, okay, here are my knowns, here's a good estimate from a revenue standpoint. I think, yes, I think it'll be better than that.
Is it
But
comes-
I don't want to go too far the wrong way and have to come back
Yeah.
and, so, I mean, I will have to come back anyway because
Yeah.
we'll have an answer at some point, but from,
Very good. Very good job. Thank
And
you.
it's always a bell curve, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we were
Yes, it
at the
is.
top, roller coaster. Now we're all holding on to our seats, sides, really wind in our face, going, ah.
The question is, are your hands in the air or are they holding on to the person next to
Very good.
Any more questions? Comments? All right. Well, that concludes our discussion. This is a future action item. It goes on our next meeting that starts in 2 minutes. So we're going to adjourn this meeting. The next regular meeting will occur after this hearing today, starting no sooner than 7 p.m. We'll start at 7. So take 1 minute, stretch, and we'll start. Meeting adjourned.